The galaxy of Warhammer 40k is filled with all manner of secrets and mysteries. But the secretive mysteries we're going to talk about today are not the exotic type that you would find in the Black Library. No, the ones we're going to talk about today are hidden right under the noses of unsuspecting Imperial worlds. These hidden horrors labor for years, cultivating power and influence as their following grows to startlingly large numbers, all in the name of a distant and vague deity that promises salvation in exchange for cult-like levels of devotion. When the time is right, these cults rise up and terrorize their homeworld to help ease the coming of their Messiah. But this Messiah isn't that of the ruinous powers or the light of the God Emperor. This Messiah is the eldritch hive mind of the Tyranids. Through subtle genetic manipulation, the Tyranids infect locals with special DNA that produces spawns and followers worthy of the might of the hive fleets. As the Tyranids descend upon a world, the Genestealer cults that sabotage the planet's defenses welcome their alien god, only to be thoughtlessly consumed and destroyed like everything else on the world. But what are Genestealer cults? How do they start up? What are their beliefs? And how effective are they at being the harbingers of doom? Let's get into it. Welcome back to Starhammer. Unlike most Tyranid bioforms, Genestealers operate independently of the Hive Fleet, and thus are granted minor intelligence by the Hive Mind. In battle, Genestealers are fast-moving and hard-hitting shock troops, but the real talents come in their stealth ability. When a Genestealer stows away on an Imperial vessel or is brought to a planet via a scout ship, the creature will find a place to lay low until it's sure that it can effectively start corrupting unwitting victims. These beasts will wait for weeks, months, and even years before making a move. The hive mind perfectly designs them to survive on the bare minimum, and their bodies can tolerate even the vacuum of space with ease, ensuring that no matter where the Genestealer ends up, they'll survive long enough to begin their nefarious infection. When a Genestealer finds an appropriate target, it will enthrall them with psychic influence, leading them to religiously revere the Genestealer, after which the Genestealer will deposit its genetic code into the victim, sort of like a reverse mosquito. When that victim eventually reproduces, the offspring they make will be horribly misshapen, freakish monsters. Bulbous heads, 4 arms, and a range of other looks encompass this first generation of Genestealer spawn. As time goes on and more offspring are produced with more thralls, every generation starts to look less and less like a discount xenomorph and more like a regular person. These newer generations of Genestealers are able to understand their host society, speak the local language, and even go to work laboring away for the Imperium. Eventually, these spawn pass as regular humans and begin embedding themselves in positions of power within important institutions. Local government, planetary defense forces, even higher government institutions like the Adeptus Arbites are not safe from Genestealer influence. The initial Genestealer organism at the head of these broods is known as the Patriarch, and operates its thralls similarly to the hive mind. Years and years pass as the Patriarch spreads the Genestealer genetics across the planet, swelling the cult's numbers to hundreds of thousands and maybe more, all of them utterly devoted to their Patriarch and, by extension, the greater Tyranid hive mind. Genestealer cults can grow exponentially, and there's no limit to their size. Some, like the cult of Pauper Princes, encompassed 18 worlds. And what makes these guys super scary is that they'll do it for decades. The later generations pass as totally human, and they intermingle and socialize and do everything else actual humans do, and no one is the wiser. As the cults grow, more specialized versions of spawn rise up. Maguses are psychers responsible for dealing with high-ranking officials of the host world, embedding themselves within them and converting them to the cause. Primuses are the strategic and military leaders of the cult, and they oversee the day-to-day operations. Nexuses are the logistics masters, making sure it all runs smoothly. Now, all cultists on our planet are known as an infestation, and one population center can give rise to several brood cycles of the same gene sect. That is, the life cycle of the Genestealer spawns and related organisms. Each gene sect can be distinct from one another, but each usually goes to great lengths to hide any identifying markers or behaviors that might give them away. As such, extreme modesty is followed. Some cults have tattoos that symbolize their allegiance, while some wear armbands and other accessories. Most of the time, these are kept low-key, little trinkets that no one will really suspect of having any significance. But once the cult rises up, banners and uniforms all openly bear the mark of their specific sect of their stellar faith. Each gene sect is further organized into claws, which all serve a specific role, from enthralling more of the locals to serving as intelligence agents and anything else the Magus or Primus requires, as they're the ones leading them. Only when a cult feels that it has grown large enough and stolen enough resources does the Patriarch send out a first-generation Genestealer to start the cycle again elsewhere. Sometimes on the same world, other times somewhere out among the stars to ensure no worlds remain in blissful ignorance of their Xenos savior. As the time draws closer for the cult to rise up, the Brood Brothers get to work on destabilizing the planet's infrastructure. Slowly and piece by piece, the cult will amass an outrageous amount of resources to aid in its uprising. From mining charges to use as makeshift explosives to mighty Leman Russ battle tanks, the cult will have everything it needs to deal with whatever resistance it encounters. The Nexuses, in their infinite strategic wisdom, are the ones responsible for deciding the strategy the Brood Brothers will take when they assault the surface. The power grids get weakened, and leaders and generals go missing or are assassinated when fighting starts by cultists who they thought to be trusted allies. It is important to remember, though, that despite doing all this in the direction of the Patriarch, it is the greater Tyranid organism that they inadvertently worship, referring to them as Star Children. The Patriarch is viewed as the prophet of what's to come, which, to the believers, is the ultimate salvation from their hellish existence. They believe the Star Children will lift them up from the mud and ensure their ascension, allowing them to join their gods among the stars as equals. They don't know that they are the harbingers of the Tyranid fleets that will come to consume the planet, but we'll get to that in a minute. The Uprising, known to the faithful as the Day of Ascension, can be triggered in a few different ways. The larger a brood grows, the stronger its psychic influence becomes. At a certain point, the signal gets picked up by a nearby Hive fleet. When the Patriarch senses the Hive fleet approaching, it will signal its brood to start their ascension. Other times, a Patriarch might act preemptively without acknowledging a Hive fleet. It might sense that the planetary society it's been embedded with is already on the verge of collapse, or that the planet's rulers revealed a glaring weakness that the Patriarch would be remiss not to exploit. Preemptive uprisings might also occur when a cult is on the verge of discovery by a threatening force, such as the Inquisition, and the active uprising is one of survival as opposed to strategic convenience. Regardless of how it shakes down, Ascension Day is catastrophic for the local population. The uprising happens suddenly, without warning. The destruction and violence wrought in such a short amount of time, orchestrated by the Nexuses and the Maguses, is brutal and efficient. It is downright apocalyptic when the Patriarch and his brood finally arise to weaken the planet for the incoming Tyranid fleet. The planet's defenders, thanks to long-term destabilization efforts, can often not mount a successful defense against an attack from the inside. Paranoia and fear erupt in their ranks as they don't know who they can trust. But eventually, a Hive fleet will arrive to consume the planet, much to the joy of the brood below, who see this as a fulfillment of their prophecies. Tyranid spores fill the skies, and terrifying bioforms pour out onto the planet. And that shakes anyone to their core, even those who believe these are the emissaries of the Star Children. The cultists are initially ignored as the cosmic monsters fight alongside them to claim a devastated world. When it's all said and done, the Brood Brothers go to grovel and embrace at the feet of their gods, only to recoil in horror, as they too are consumed, like the natives they fought for so long and for so hard to overthrow. Even their own Patriarch and his firstborn spawn join the Tyranids in consuming the cult as the icing on the planetary cake. Any species, Tau, Eldar, etc., can fall prey to one of these Genestealer cults, but the hive mind has quickly figured out that human worlds present the best chances of a Genestealer succeeding. The Imperium first encountered this horror on Gosar Quintus in 680 M41, a small and unremarkable mining world. Whispers had reached the Inquisition about a secret religion that had popped up in the bowels of the cold mine shafts. When an Inquisitor came to investigate with a squad of Tempestus Scions, the party found several anomalies, but despite that, their last transmission reported that everything was fine. But that couldn't be further from the truth. About a year later, the Inquisition realized something didn't sit right with those reports, and sent a Death Watch team to investigate, but they didn't come back either. If a kill team of veteran Astartes couldn't handle what was going on in the bowels of the Gosar Quintus, then something was seriously wrong. Not to meet the same fate, Ultramarines chaplain Orton Cassius gathered a large group of steeled veterans and assaulted the colony. They fought through droves of cultists whose cover was now blown, and while they made it to the Patriarch and killed it, they had discovered that the Xenos infestation had been spreading to other worlds in the sector through the masquerade of industrial shipping. Though this cult, part of the cult of the Four-Armed Emperor, had been destroyed, The implications that every world in the sector and beyond could be tainted was nightmare fuel for the Imperium. Who could they trust? Would they uncover the cults in time before they totally infested these planets? Further research by the Inquisition's Ordo Xenos revealed the link between these cults and the nearly unstoppable Tyranid fleets roaming the galaxy, leading them to be classified Genus Xenos Horrificus, a designation reserved only for the gravest of alien threats. With the terrible truth revealed that countless Imperial worlds could be tainted by Genestealers, the Inquisition had to develop entirely new protocols on how to find and deal with these cults. The clock is ticking for the Imperium to find and exterminate these Xenos-worshipping scum, and time is not on their side. And that's it for this one, y'all. Pretty freaky to think about how a Genestealer cult could be right under your nose, isn't it? You could be one. I could be one. Yeah, look at him. That's a patriarch if I ever seen one. As always, drop a like if you like it, a subscribe if you really liked it, and check out the community tab for shitposts and shenanigans. I'll see you in the next one. Toodles.